When my brother was 3 years old, he had this routine of getting up early, walking into my parents' bathroom, and then getting really upset. And he kept at this for ages until one day he asked my mom, "Mom, why do you cover yourself with chocolate?" So my brother thought that my mom was covering herself with chocolate powder. He said, "My skin is like this, Coralie's skin is like this, and Dad's skin is like me. But you cover yourself with chocolate. Don't you like your skin?" And so after a while, she gave him some tissue to wipe her skin. And no matter how hard he wiped, nothing came off. So he then accused her of putting on the chocolate the night before. To which my mother simply said, "My skin is always like this." As for me, I did notice that my mom's skin tone was different from mine, but I never said anything. Whenever we travel, my dad, my brother, and I would be in one line at customs, and my mom would be pulled aside, and she'd join us afterwards. And I thought nothing of it until one day I was speaking with friends, and no one knew what I was talking about. Turns out, whenever we were at customs, my mom would be asked by officers whether my brother and I were her biological children, to which she would pull out photocopies of our birth certificates as proof. Apparently, people couldn't see how we were related because our skin tones and parts of our faces looked different. When I was 7 years old, I learned that the smarter word to use was race. And I remember at that time thinking, what does skin color have to do with running? So fast forward 10 years later, and I decided to do a lot of research and a lot of thinking about race. And here's what I found. Race isn't a new concept. During the European exploration period, Europeans discovered new wildlife, while taxonomy, the classification of plants and animals, also became popular. Now, as Europeans discovered new lands, they discovered people who lived in those lands who came in different colors, shapes, and sizes. And so began the classification of people into different categories. Carolus Lianis divided humans into 4 categories: the white European, the red American, the yellow Asian, and the black African. Johann Blumenbach later divided humans into 5 categories: the Caucasian, the American, the Mongoloid, the Malay, and the Ethiopian. Unfortunately, other researchers took these ideas and began to evolve them to encourage what we now call racism. Race scientists, as they were called, began to turn the idea of race from a question of classification into a biological justification for mistreatment. Race was determined by skin color, skull size, and facial features, and were considered the group differences in morality, personality, and intelligence, thus creating the stereotypes we all know of today. For example, Black Africans were once considered to have low morality and low intelligence, but were unusually strong and felt little to no pain, which was why they were used as slaves. Unfortunately, findings like these were used to justify discrimination, segregation, and genocides, like the Holocaust. But before I finish this part, I want to switch gears and look at something for a moment. So, in taxonomy, when a species is discovered, that species should demonstrate distinct qualities from other similar species. So what makes humans different? Well, is there a distinction in speed and strength? Not really. Is there a distinction in intelligence? Not really. Is there a difference in human anatomy? Well, I don't know about you guys, but I really don't see a difference. So okay, there's not really a distinction between humans, but what makes all of us look different? Well, did you all know that there's not a single gene that dictates your race or how you look? Every single physical part of you, including your skin color, is determined by separate genes, which are later influenced by your environment and lifestyle choices. All the genes found within a population is called the gene pool, and the degree, or the amount of which a common gene is found within that pool, is called the gene frequency. Now, these frequencies aren't set. As the frequencies change, so does the expression or the physical manifestation of these genes change. And they are also influenced by factors such as migration, immigration, and geographic location. So, the physical appearance of human beings within a population is a result of heredity, environment, and gene frequency, rather than a set of fixed traits shared across generations within a population. This is why some populations have more diversity and some have less, and this is also why we may or may not look like our parents. For example, this baby was born in London back in 2010. These are her parents, and these are her siblings. And it's been proven that she's neither albino nor is she suffering from any pigment condition. These twins are full twins, and their parents are both mixed. And they still look like this today. These two twins took their looks from each of their parents, while their siblings vary between their two extremes. And we see things like this occur again and again. Now, keep in mind that this can happen to anybody, including myself and all of you. Let's look at the girl in this picture. Raise your hand if you think she's white. Raise your hand if you think she's black. Raise your hand if you think she's mixed. Sandra Lange was a child who grew up during apartheid in South Africa. When she was 10 years old, she was expelled from her school because she was colored. Her parents, who were outraged at the decision, demanded that she be reclassified. These were her parents. Now, obviously, her mom is her mom, but who would say that the dad is not her actual dad? Well, like all of you, it was argued that Sandra's dad must have been Black African, which would have explained her appearance. But after a blood test, it was proven that that man in the picture with her is her biological father, and that both of them and at least 3 generations of their ancestors were white. And so Sandra was reclassified as white. Now, if it wasn't for this reclassification, Sandra would have never seen her family ever again. Quick question, how many of you are Irish or have Irish ancestry? Well, not so long ago, you guys would have been placed in the same social category as Black people who received poor treatment socially, politically, and economically. You guys were believed to have been originated from Africa, like Black people, and were believed to have very low intelligence and very violent tempers, among other horrible, harsh stereotypes. You guys were also resented by white people because you guys were Catholic and supposedly stealing jobs and lands. But today, you guys are white. How many of you are Mexican or have Mexican ancestry? Well, not so long ago in the United States in the 1920s, you would have been classified here as white. But in the 1930s, you would have been classified as Mexican and not white. But then in the 1940s, you guys were white again, and you guys stayed white until the 1980s. About a century ago, being Black in the United States was a very tricky thing. Depending on which state you were in, no matter how white you may have looked, any trace of Black ancestry automatically made you Black in that state. This was referred to as the one-drop rule. But if any mixed person at the time moved out of any of these states highlighted in yellow, they could have easily switched their races and pass as white. How many of you are mixed, biracial, or multiracial? Well, in the United States in the 1980s and 90s, if you specified in your census form which race you were, which mixture you were, you would have been classified as the first racial label you put in first. So for example, if you wrote black, white, you were black. If you wrote white, black, you were white. Otherwise, you were just assigned to your mother's race. But today, you can be more than one race. Census forms now allow us to pick whatever we feel identifies us best. Which brings me to my next question. So, you might know what race you are, but how would you prove it if someone disagreed with you? This was my mom in Bali back in 1997. When she and my dad were returning home, they almost missed their flight because they were detained for 2 hours by immigration officers who were sure that she was an Indian giant woman with a fake passport. By the way, I Googled Indian giant people, and this is what I got. Now, my mom's not Indonesian, but as a lot of you might figure, she can pass as one here if she wanted to. Just like if my mom was actually Indonesian and back in the United States, she could pass as black if she wanted to. Either way, simply due to her appearance, location, and perception, she could have blended in either way. Just like these people may look white, but are actually Kalashi people from Pakistan. And these people may look like African, but are actually Jarawa people from Bengal, India. Yes, India. So we think we know, but we really don't have any idea. On another note, I remember a few years ago, a group of Nigerian women once asking my mom where in the Caribbean she was from. And not wanting to appear snubby, she said that she was African. To which they corrected her saying, "You are not African." And I noticed ever since, she made it a point to say African descent. Now this stayed with me because it made me wonder, okay, so we're allowed to choose our identity, but at the same time, it's already imposed on us. So do we really have the freedom to choose how we look at ourselves? Or is that already predetermined by history and ignorance? The truth is, there is no natural racial divisions among humans, as there's only one actual human, one race, Homo sapiens sapiens, the human race. And I'm not the only one who came to this conclusion. After World War II, UNESCO released statements known as the race question, explaining that race is not a biological concept, but a social one, and declared it a myth. Using race to identify and address ourselves and each other is a serious misapplication of a scientific term that has brought nothing but division and destruction amongst ourselves as a species. We should strive to stop using race as a form of identification. Now, does this mean that we should pretend that everything in the past never happened? Absolutely not. Is what I'm saying today the cure to all racial tension? Not really. But I believe that in order to move forward as one race, we need to acknowledge our mistakes, learn from them, and detach ourselves from them. Otherwise, we'll be stuck in the same vicious cycle we've been in for centuries. Now, I want you all to do something for me right now. Look around in the room and look for someone whose race you cannot identify. Now, once you find that person, instead of trying to categorize their appearance, I want you to look at them as a person. Look at their body language, their facial expressions, anything that hints at their personality, interests, and whatever is going through their head. Now, once you do that, I want you to look for someone whose race you can identify in the room and do your very best to do the same exact thing. I challenge everyone in here to do this for the next 30 days and just see what happens. I could go on about this for hours, but I'll just leave you with some words from Rumi. I am not this hair. I am not this skin. I am the soul that lives within. And I would like to add some words to that poem. We are not colors to be sorted out by laundry. We are all human. So color me human. Thank you.